Hello and greetings from across the Media Multiverse. Today I am going to have a look at this article from the Independent newspaper here in the UK, where they report that there's going to be a new adaptation of Agatha Christie story starring amateur detectives Tommy and Tuppence. The major thing with this adaptation is firstly it's going to be in the modern day, and secondly Tommy and Tuppence are going to be using Wi-Fi and the internet. But this isn't the first time that the modern day has impacted on Agatha Christie. For example, in 2001, Alfred Molina starred in an adaptation of Murder on the Orient Express, and there he too used a laptop. I can see people howling at this news. Why can't you just leave things alone? Just do a normal adaptation. Why do you have to always tamper with works of art, etc., etc.? But in many ways, that is to miss the point. Agatha Christie always wrote her books contemporaneously. With few exceptions, all her books are set in the time period in which she is writing them in. The first Hercule Poirot book, A Mysterious Affair in Styles, is written and set in the period just after the First World War. Later books, such as Third Girl, which was published in 1966, is very much of its time, as we see Hercule Poirot contact the smart Chelsea set of youths. So that also brings us to a question which is probably for another video in another debate about just how old is Hercule Poirot. If he was an aging policeman in the 1920s, how old would he be in the 1960s? But that is by the by. But to get back to the point of this video, in the 1960s, Hercule Poirot would have been using all the gadgets that were available to the people of the day. Had Agatha Christie been writing her books still today, she would be letting her heroes use the internet, like Alfred Molina's Poirot. Or maybe she may have felt that she may need to introduce some hip youngsters to use the Wi-Fi and help the old dears along. But, as I say, she always wrote contemporaneously, and all her books are set in the period in which she wrote them. And for that reason, her works can now be seen as a social record of evolving everyday life in Britain during her time, covering the 1920s, 1930s, and all the way through to the 1970s. For example, her earlier work features flappers and a post-Second World War atmosphere, while her later books subtly references elements like the rise and the fear in political tensions in Europe before the Second World War, or the changes in British society after the Second World War. In many ways, the only major exception where she doesn't write for the present day is the novel Death Comes at the End, which was published in 1944, but is a historical mystery set in ancient Egypt around 2000 BC or BCE. This novel is often cited as the only work that was not contemporaneous. It was cinema and television that forced Poirot into the 1930s and Miss Marple into the 1950s, and this is very obvious from a visual point of view, because it would become very odd if you're watching these episodes and 1 minute they're in the 1930s and the next minute they're in the 1950s. So, with regards to this new adaptation of a Tommy and Tuppence story, I personally am looking forward to watching this without worrying about it being set in the modern day and using Wi-Fi. It's what Agatha would have done had she been writing today. And I guess the other thing is, if you just adapted it as a straight retelling of the story, well, it's been done before, so what's the point of just redoing it? And those are my quick thoughts on this new adaptation without having seen it and just coming in, because I've seen there's loads of woes on the internet and everything. What do you think? Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? Personally, I would prefer it if they wrote new stories with these characters rather than just taking old stories and maybe changing the ending, the murderer, etc. But that aside, yeah, bring it on. Until next time, may your news be good news and happy times and places. Farewell.